Hi, I'm Josh Jelinski, the financial quarterback. And on today's episode of The Financial Quarterback, I'm going to reveal how the $700 million that Shohei Ohtani is not what you think when you account for future value, present value. In fact, he may even be getting screwed. What could I mean? Shohei getting screwed, $700 million deal, biggest contract in North American sports history, and second or third in the world, only compared to Ronaldo, Mbappe, and maybe Messi. So why could Shohei be getting screwed? Well, who owns the LA Dodgers? Guggenheim Sports Management, that is. What does Guggenheim own? Guggenheim owns Security Benefit, a large annuity contract provider. Upon further inspection of the details revealed by Ken Rosenthal of The Athletic, who posted on his Twitter the following, says this: Ohtani deal with the Dodgers, per the source, includes unprecedented deferrals. The majority of his salary. Now, I want to be clear, we don't know exactly the details of the deferrals. The deferrals were Ohtani's idea to ease the Dodgers' luxury tax and cash flow burdens to give the team the flexibility it needs to be as competitive as possible, the source said. But here's the point. Think about it. Who owns the Dodgers? Guggenheim. These guys are like the masters of the financial universe. Guggenheim, if you don't know, they manage a lot of bonds for insurance companies. They own interests in Delaware Life. They own Security Benefit. That's why Security Benefit is plastered all over Chavez Ravine and Dodger Stadium. So they're an annuity company. So upon further inspection, think about this, $400 million, biggest contracts were 12 years Mookie Betts, 9 years Aaron Judge, Mike Trout's 12-year, $400 and something million deal. What if upon further inspection, the Dodgers got a steal? Here's what I mean. If you take present value, now present value, according to most people, is something we don't know. And the beauty of this story is it actually shows the importance of why you should learn basic financial terms like present value and future value. So let's first start out with some financial planning definitions. Present value is the current value of a future sum of money or stream of cash flows given a specific rate of return. Present value takes the future value, $700 million in the case of Shohei Ohtani, and applies a discount rate or the interest rate that could be earned if invested. And that's why my thesis is that Shohei Ohtani may be getting screwed because he's making $700 million in future value, not today. So it's not quite this $700 million that everybody's talking about, because if he had a larger lump sum, say $400 million or $350 million, as I'm going to show later on, he actually would have had a lot more in ending value at the end of the 40 years. And this is why everybody should know about financial planning and why everybody should follow me, like, and subscribe to The Financial Quarterback, because I'm going to educate you on why Shohei may not understand financial planning. But hey, Shohei, if you need a good financial planner, I'm here for you, because I would have got you a much better deal. So let's just look at the contract details. If the present value, if you invested $300 million today, and you made, let's say, 4% on that money in treasuries, maybe in 5%. Guggenheim, they buy bonds for insurance companies. If you earn 5%, that $300 million in 40 years would be equivalent to $2.112 billion. It would be far better if he took $300 million up front and said, Guggenheim, buy me an annuity that would pay me for life. Like much like what Bobby Bonilla did. Bobby Bonilla got $30 million in future value. He took $5 million in present value. So the Bobby Bonilla deal, actually in inflation adjusted dollars, may be better than the Shohei Ohtani deal. Now, I haven't done the math on that, but the point is that Bobby's theoretically should have been what Ohtani did. Here's what I mean. If you take $300 million and you just invest it at 5% a year, that $300 million in 40 years would be $2.112 billion. But what did the Dodgers do? Oh, yeah, we'll gladly, Mr. Ohtani, you were selfless. You want to build a winner in LA? will gladly take your selflessness and be selfish about it. Ohtani would have done better putting his money into annuities that the LA Dodgers management approve of. Here's what I mean. If you structure the payments, he's going to get $40 million for 10 years, something like that. So they stay within the caps. Now the details might be at $60 million over 10. But then what happens after year 10? We're doing an annual payment on $40 million for 10 years. Then what I'm doing is I'm going to give him $8 million for the next 30. Now, mind you, it is $700 million of future value. It's not $700 million in today's value. Now you might say, well, why does that matter? Well, inflation makes it matter. What he could have earned makes it matter. So think about this. So the present value, let's see if it's $500 million. So it's going to be something more like this. If you invested $500 million and they're making 5%, that's the Dodgers. They're keeping this sum. Ohtani's not getting the sum. He's getting the payment structure. And the lifetime payment structure is going to be something like $640 million. It's not going to be $700 million. So the payments will be a little different. Some even say it's going to be something like $40 million every 4 years or something. The nature of the deferrals is unprecedented, they say. But it's going to be something like a Bobby Bonilla deal. But Bobby Bonilla got interest every year. Big difference. So let's do $40 million for 10 and then $8.8 million for 30. That's still $664 in payments. So it's going to be a little more than that. $8.9 million. That's still $667 in cumulative value. It's going to be something like, the deal will be something like $9.1 million a year, every year thereafter. That brings us to 673. We're very close here. We're getting to that 700 million very soon. Now, the deal actually I've heard is something like every fourth year he's getting 40 million. Here's the point. Financial planning ignorance is costing Mr. Ohtani a lot of money. He would have been far better with 300 million upfront, investing it himself or having me invest it rather than the Dodgers invest it. They could have, in fact, done it in one of their annuities and it'd be better. So the math appears to be 40 million for 10 years and something like 10 million a year every year thereafter. But that's not the Bobby Bonilla deal. Bobby Bonilla got like $1 million for over 30 years, but it was a $5 million present value that equated into 30 million of future value. Here it's 500 million of future value, of present value equating to about 700 million over time. But guess who ends up with 539 million at the end of the deal? The Dodgers. Look at this math, folks. Watch this. You take 500 grand in present value calculation. You invest that in 5% 30-year treasuries, 10-year treasuries, whatever. They're a financial company. You then get paid 40 million a year for 10 years. Great. Then 10 million for the next 30. The total is 700. That's in the future value. They still get to keep 539. So it's not actually, it would have been far better for him to just take 300 million up front, invest the difference, or even maybe take an ownership in one of Guggenheim's companies. So if I was his agent, I would have got him a better deal. So all that secrecy was for nothing. This is even crazier what I'm showing, guys. I think he got 330 over 10, and then we're popping 50 million in an annuity. This is mind-blowing. So if you put 50 million in an annuity, right? And that annuity has a deferred bonus of 8% a year, because annuities will have some type of deferred income bonus, right? They're actually giving him, and it might be 50 million a year for 10 and then something else. So this is what I've thought about too. Shohei's not getting 700 million in present value. He's getting 700 million over 40 years. What that actually means is if you took $320 million in present value money, invested it at 5% in treasuries, because that's what Guggenheim does, that would give you about $40 million over 10 years, have a little bit less in year 10. So the equivalent is like they're giving him 320 over 10, because we know somehow the nature of the deal is unprecedented, meaning there's 40 years of total payments, and he's getting something like 40 million a year for 10, and then 10 million a year from year 11 to year 40. But check this out. I have done the math. He's getting less over a 12-year period than even Mike Trout. If you take 320 in present value, now this is in present value. You could, I guess, say the same thing about any of these deals to some degree, because they're not getting 420 in one lump sum. But this is interesting argument for the general population to be educated on the concept of inflation, to be educated on the concept of investing and compounding. If you took $328 million, invested at 5%, you would get $40 million over 10 years, then you'd have about $6 million left over. So that's where I'm getting my premise that $328 million is sort of the upfront cost over the first 10 years to the Dodgers. They're making out like a bandit over here. Dare I say, is Shohei Ohtani getting screwed? So that's the first $328 million. Then what they're doing is they're taking something like a $50 or $100 million annuity out, perhaps from Guggenheim, perhaps from Security Benefit, and they're investing that $100 million at 5%. Check this out. All they have to make is 5% on their money, which they could be doing right now in treasuries, which something Guggenheim manages for insurance companies. They have that $100 million today. Guggenheim has that today, not Shohei, right? Because he's getting $40 million for 10. They're investing at a 5%. Then the $100 million grows to $105 million. Then the 105 grows to 110. Then it grows to 162. Now this is at a 5% rate. At a 7% rate, it's even greater. But let's just say it's 5. Then they pay him out $10 million over 40 years, and there's nothing left at the end of the 4 years except about $6 million. So check this out. All they're really on the hook for is about $422 million. Actually less than the cumulative amount that Mike Trout is getting, or maybe about the same, but they're amortizing it much like a home mortgage over 30, 40 years. So I would argue that Trout's deal of $420 million over 12 is actually better than Ohtani's deal of $700 million over 40 years. And that's why Shohei and other people, other athletes need to be educated on how financial planning works. It would have been far better if Shohei cut a deal and said, you know what? I want 328 now, and I'm going to invest that my own. Let me show you what would happen then. If he took $328 million and he invested, let's say he invests that in a portfolio like the S&P, and he did that for 40 years, he gets his 40 million. Check this out. This is crazy. Even if he has to pay a fee for advisors and this and that, and probably a less fee than that. If he invested $328 million, got $40 million a year, then he got $10 million a year, he would still have $2.52 billion at the end of the 40 years if he invested in the S&P from 1984 to the present. Now, that's a good stretch of years. Let's say we picked a bad stretch of years, like the 20s. Well, he would have gone belly up in 8 years. But the point is, even if he had a portfolio, 60-40 portfolio, still runs out in 24 years. Now that's starting in 1955. Let's say he goes 80% stock, 20% bonds. He never runs out of money and still has $233 million at the end of the 40 years. So here's the point. Shohei needs a new financial advisor because his agent got him the raw end of the deal. That's my point. Comment, like, subscribe. I'm Josh Jelinski, the financial quarterback.